On today's installation video, we'll be showing you how to install a race chip on the BMW crossovers equipped with the N20 4-cylinder turbo. If your BMW has a different style N20 or a different engine layout, please click our channel to search for our other N20 video. Before installing the race chip, please wait until your engine is cool enough to work on. Put your parking brake or emergency brake on. If your vehicle is equipped with an alarm system, please disable it. Pop the hood, roll up the windows, close the doors, and press the lock button on your key fob and move that key fob 30 feet away. You're going to wait about 10 minutes after for all the electricity to clear from underneath the hood. On the N20, we're going to be connecting to A on the boost pressure sensor. Our B is going to go to our manifold pressure sensor, and our C is going to go to our mass airflow sensor. Alright, our first connection point A is going to go to the turbo boost pressure sensor right here. Now you can press down the locking tab to remove the sensor, or grab a small flathead or pick to go ahead and unplug the sensor. And then we're going to take our male end of the race chip supplied wiring harness, plug it directly into the OEM sensor. You're going to push on until it clicks and locks, and then lock it in place with the gray locking tab. And then we'll take the female end of the race chip supplied wiring harness and plug it directly into the OEM sensor plug we just unplugged. Next up is our B connection going to our manifold pressure sensor. Using that same 90-degree pick or the small flathead screwdriver, I'm going to undo the gray locking tab, press down on the OEM sensor plug to unlock it. Then we'll take our race chip supplied female end of the wiring harness and plug it directly into that OEM sensor plug that we just unplugged. Then we'll take the male end of the race chip harness and plug it directly onto the OEM sensor, waiting until it clicks and locks in place, and then lock it in there with the gray locking tab. Now for our last and final connection will be to our C on the MAF, or mass airflow sensor. Again, using that 90-degree pick, we're going to undo the locking tab on the OEM sensor plug, and then take our female end of the race chip harness and plug that directly in. We want to make sure it clicks and locks. Then we'll take our race chip supplied male end and plug it directly into that OEM sensor, locking it in place with the gray locking tab. Now that the race chip harness has been connected, we're going to move to installing the race chip unit itself. We're going to use the 4 supplied locking tabs to put in each corner of the race chip unit. We'll use the 2 longer of the race chip supplied zip ties to either mount them vertically or horizontally to mount the race chip in place, and then the smaller zip ties to mount the wiring harness in place. The really nice thing about our mounting tabs is if you ever need to remove the race chip for any reason, instead of having to cut the zip ties, instead you can press down on the locking tabs on the 4 corners and leave the zip ties and mounting tabs in place and remove the race chip. Now we're going to actually place the race chip in place. We're first going to remove the deactivation plug. Now you're going to want to hang on to the deactivation plug. Don't throw this away. We suggest throwing this in your glove box or even your center console. If you ever need to revert the car back to stock, the deactivation plug is going to act as a bypass and revert the car immediately back to stock. So now that we've removed the deactivation plug, we'll then install the race chip directly into the same position the deactivation plug was, lock it in place with the FCI plug. Now it's really important the first time we install the unit, we get no LED lit up on the GTS, and if you have the RSOS, there's no green light that lights up. It's really important the first time we install the unit, we have no power going to the engine or the sensors. Now you're going to want to find a good place to mount the race chip. We suggest anywhere away from the hot and moving parts, as well as someplace that it's hard for moisture to get to. Generally, anywhere near the fuse box or behind a headlight is a great spot, as it's hard for moisture to get there. But in this specific application, we found right here is a pretty good spot next to the throttle body, as it's away from the very hot moving parts of the engine. Now using the 2 longer of the supplied zip ties, we're going to zip tie the race chip in place. Now if we're going to be zip tying to any electrical or fluid lines, we don't want to zip tie too tight to pinch the flow of any fluids or to kink the electrical lines. So make sure you do the zip ties a little loose, but just enough to keep the race chip secure. Then we're going to use the shorter of the supplied zip ties to route the race chip wiring harness away from the hot and moving parts. Just like the RaceChip unit itself, if we're going to zip tie to any electrical lines or fluid lines, we don't want to zip tie too tight. Start in the default setting of the RaceChip for the first time you test drive the car. If everything works great, you can then move the RaceChip to the next level up. Be aware that the car needs some time to adapt before releasing the full performance upgrade. Now, get out, drive, and enjoy your RaceChip.